My life was going pretty well on autopilot. 2 kids, wife, career. It was just in kind of the midst of, towards the tail end of COVID. Work was going quite well. I'm in the boat business. And so boats, RVs, outdoor, recreational equipment was flying off the shelf. So I was quite busy and probably distracted. On a personal level, I'd say things were going really, really well. But I've always had a problem or had an issue with alcohol use and socially feeding a lot of anger that existed inside of me. My dad passed away in 2012. He was pretty young. He was 59, cancer. And we weren't estranged, but I wasn't close to my dad. And, I had a kind of a rocky upbringing towards the end of high school in my life and learning to become a man all on my own and meeting my wife and starting a family. It was built on a foundation of all I wanted to do was, have a relationship with my dad again. And all of a sudden he was gone. And he got to see me buy a home. He was at my wedding, but he didn't get to see me have children and become a dad. And now that I am a father, I kind of go through life with a different perspective that I now have an appreciation in fatherhood that I wanted to share that bond with him and he couldn't. And maybe that had something to do with the anger or angst that I felt inside of was being fueled and would come out and become unmasked when our inhibitions are lowered, when we're, socially drinking, kind of a habit and a lifestyle that I learned in college when I was out on my own, fending for myself. I've always had a really good head on my shoulders, focused, good moral compass, fun, doing the right thing. But, there's some demons there. And I want to say that the guys that run MOI could recognize that, brothers that you're bonded with on a different level could recognize that maybe I could benefit from some of the teachings of what MOI has to offer. So it was pretty resistant. And again, on autopilot, didn't think I had a problem. Just, product of my environment, who I was hanging out with, people I was, other friends in a social setting. But a large part of me felt like my life was so good and I was so fortunate that it almost felt like a Fabergé egg of my life was this like perfect ornate thing, but you can't carry it around forever. It's inevitable you're going to drop the thing. It's going to shatter into a million pieces. And I just kind of walked around with that fear and anxiety all the time because that's my personal experience growing up. Is that happened to me? My parents got divorced in high school. It was like a bomb went off. We lost our house. My mom left to go rescue my niece, my sister's child. I did not remind myself that was my parents' experience, not my experience, but I felt really, really nervous that something bad was going to happen. So ultimately, what led me to getting involved in MOI, I was just drinking on a long day and passing out on the couch, watching TV, and my wife would go to bed alone. And my kids that are now, or at the time were like 3 and 6 years old, are reaching a stage where they're paying attention. And I didn't want them to see this behavior. And my wife saw that they were going to see this behavior unless something was going to be done about it. So she said, whatever the guys at MOI are doing, maybe you should really talk to them. You need to talk to somebody. You need to see someone. And I had gone on an ayahuasca retreat when we had our second born in 2018 and experienced that and got a lot from that experience and experimented in those expanded spaces. But I know I needed something more and something that was a little bit more long lasting aside from just a weekend, maybe a community and leaning on my community. And I remember vividly going on a Cub Scout weekend, and it was on a Saturday in Fairfax. And I was going to bring my 6-year-old son to a Cub Scout meeting and have a sleepover. And I remember feeling really annoyed that it was on a Saturday night because Saturday night, that's my time to get drunk and pass out on the couch, and numb myself. And I couldn't do that on that weekend. And I said, what the hell is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? This little guy is looking up to you. This is real. There's no more time left. He's paying attention. You can't do this for him. How selfish are you? You are not a man. You have not shown up yet. This is what your wife's talking about. She's waiting for you to show up and she's not going to wait forever. And so that Fabergé egg that you're worried that something's going to happen, you're going to be the one to drop it. I didn't realize that I could drop it. I always thought it was going to be an outside. Oh, duh. So fast forward to 2022, December, joined a retreat weekend. And, walking into that house, I had certain intentions, didn't really know what to expect, kept expectations low, which is what we were guided to do. But still felt that feeling of the Fabergé walking in. I was almost like queasy walking into the house, not knowing what to expect, but knowing I was willing to go deep, and I did. But to answer your question, life was not, I was not awoken. I use this phrase a lot, like autopilot, like whatever habits you're into, if you're not awoken to any other way of being, that whatever habits, you don't think it's a habit. That's just the way of life. You don't think any different. So I didn't think anything was wrong necessarily because I had been suppressing, repressing emotions and memories and masking it and compounding it with life, career, marriage, house, kids. Things can spiral and stack up really quick. I needed to shed all of the layers on top and go to the root, pull the roots out. And here today. Well, let me just say that I was blown away first and foremost by just the level or the caliber of the setting of the retreat. I didn't know the other 5 gentlemen. And pulling up to the house, I was like, wow, they've really outdone themselves. They're really focused on creating a space that people can feel comfortable in. It's truly about setting and creating a container. So my first impression of just even showing up was like this house, the setting was curated perfectly. Stepping into the house and meeting everyone, the gentleman that I haven't yet met was, I guess, a nervous feeling. And I'm not a nervous person socially. I didn't have any anxiety, but I didn't know how vulnerable or what the other people's state was going to be at and where they were at in their life. And I couldn't have been more relieved to just meet these gentlemen, these guys that are normal guys. We're all just processing something. We're all going through something. My fear was like, oh, I'm walking into like an AA meeting or something and gonna be meeting homeless guys. It's like the first. These are just normal guys and normal guys that just want to get their shit together. They want to get their life together. That's the common thread. Really, when you build trust immediately, knowing that that's the common thread throughout all the men that are there, you hit the ground running. The guys that run it are, I call it spiritual sergeant slaughters. They're like drill sergeants. There's like very, very little downtime. You're hanging out, but there's a structure. There's a ton of workshops. I'm actually going back to the January retreat for 2.0. Really excited, actually. A lot of the angst is gone, knowing what I'm walking into and knowing it's going to be perfectly curated. Everything's going to be, turnkey, white glove experience. I always said like a billionaire could show up to this retreat and say, hey, that was pretty professional. There's so much content in the workshops during the retreat that I feel like when you're filled with a little bit of the angst, you're not picking up on every subtle little point that's being made in these workshops. Or not. I want to be able to come back and watch the movie over again and be able to really take back every little piece of knowledge and information that is bestowed all throughout the weekend, from hydration to nutrition to your sex life and masculine and feminine dynamics and how to be with your woman when you come back. And it's really the tenets of this group is there's follow-up. We're all accountable to one another. And if you don't have the tools as an enlightened person when you leave to go home and put those tools to work, what purpose did it serve? So they give you the tools to come home and be the better man. That's the whole mission of the group through all aspects of what being a man is about. And there's a lot of fun. There's a lot of laughter. And everyone has their own little specialty in helping create the meals or the environment or whether it's the seminars. Everyone's chipping in. So it's like a spiritual fraternity. I wasn't expecting to have so much fun. And that's all because I built up in my head that I didn't know that men I was going to be around were just like me. And there is a place for all of us that weekend. But you really feel energized, like the sense of camaraderie, like, oh, wow, he's doing the work. I need to do my work. I'm not going to let him down because he's not going to let me down. It's kind of like a CrossFit. Like I would never do that workout by myself in a garage. But if I got 10 other guys And I see they're doing it. All right, I guess I do too. It's power. It's so powerful. It's a wolf pack. So yeah, I couldn't have been more pleased with the set and setting, the people that are there, and that fun and safety and trust allows everyone to be safe and vulnerable, and you don't hold anything back because ultimately we're there to empty the vessel, and they allow you to do that. So everyone wants to know, how is it going with the alcohol? I have been sober now for 2 years. I haven't had a drop since Thanksgiving of 2022. Leading into the weekend, into the retreat, you got to have a couple weeks off from just like substances and all that and get your mind and body right. So yeah, it's been 2 years now. I don't feel triggered. I realized going as deep as I did, I saw it for myself. I thought it was going to be the hardest decision I ever had to make. Like, no, that's my one vice. It's the one way I can numb myself. I don't have to be numb anymore. I let it go. Life goes on. You can't change the past. It is what it is. But I realized through this level of consciousness and heightened state of awareness, you have one body, but everything happens for a reason. And all of the shit that happened in my life, and a lot of people have dealt with a lot more shit, that everything that's happened before us had to happen for us to be who we are. Every little millions of dominoes had to fall a certain way, and the butterfly effect had to happen the way it had to happen for me to be giving this interview right now, to have that awareness to say, let it go. I'm going to use my garbage can tool that my kids are literally at their elementary school. I wish I'd had these tools when I was 7 years old. I'm learning this at 40, but I'm throwing that away in the garbage can. It's the past. I can't change it. What's the takeaway? What am I going to learn for it? And I know that I don't want that for my kids. I'm ready to show up and be a man for my wife, who's been so incredibly patient and waiting for me because she's the one. And we're preordained to be together. We recognize that now, but without this word, I would have scoffed at that thought. Like, oh, that's some hippy dippy shit. It's real. The connectivity in all things. So having the self-awareness to say, I'm going to show up and I don't need to have alcohol to mask anything because there's nothing left to mask. I am the party. I can show up. I don't need to have depressants. With my past, I don't need alcohol. I'm allergic to it. It's not good. So I'm not going to add fuel to that fire. I know I don't need to. And that fire is kind of dimming out. And I'm focused in the present and being there with my kids and my wife and being happy and going forward. She sees it. She sees it so much that, she's on the same wavelength now than I am. It's been 2 years to get her there, but we're on the same plane of spirituality, and she's doing her own work, and she was never a spiritual person. I can't believe I'm the one to be the catalyst in our relationship to help her see that.